are interested.
Exactly, all right.
Okay, let's begin.
Okay. Welcome to the Utah State Senate Media Chat. We just got off the floor working on House bills today. 2 days a week, the Senate works on House bills, and the Senate and the House works on Senate bills, we hope. It looks like they have been. And this is your opportunity for those who are looking, watching us on the internet, to ask questions also. So please let us know what your questions are today, and we'll attempt to answer them. We'll now open it up to questions from our media.
What's on schedule in caucus today?
Education and retirement issues. A couple of different bills that are coming out on education. One is state trust lands funding amendments. The other one is Senator Stevenson's bill. Again, a funding issue. Senator Weiler's going to be talking about a couple of retirement issues.
Juicy.
Senator Urquhart's bill on revamping the hate crimes laws up in committee today. What are your
Is
thoughts?
it agenda? It was on the agenda
It
today?
was on the agenda today, yeah.
Oh, this morning?
This afternoon.
This
Oh, it's on
afternoon.
This afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that bill. Does that the law need to be updated, overhauled, as he's proposing?
Well, I don't know if I'd characterize as something that's absolutely needed at this time. We're curious to see the debate that goes on in the committee. And I know that there are a number of senators who are concerned about the bill and what the long-term effects of it are. But we tend to want to have those transparent discussions here in the Senate, so we'll see how it goes.
What are some of the concerns specifically?
Just the penalties of something like this, and how do you determine if it's a hate crime or not, and because you don't want to have a gotcha type of bill. Obviously we don't want to have hate crimes, but many of the things that are addressed as far as a hate crime is already a crime. And so anyway, those are some of the concerns. What are the long-term effects? This is a fairly huge policy change, and so we want to move forward in a deliberate manner.
You say it's a huge policy change, but it already is. I mean, we had this debate years ago about a hate crimes law that we ended up passing, and the argument is that this one's sort of a paper tiger. It's got no teeth in it. So should there be enhanced penalties for crimes that are committed against specific groups based on religion, sexual orientation, gender, race, that sort of thing?
She's out there.
Well, that's the question, and I'm not here to probably answer that today, because this is something that has to be voted on in committee and on the floor, and we'll see where the vote goes on it. Is the question being asked? I don't think it's a paper change. This is a different change now.
I meant the existing laws, seeing as the prosecutors have said it doesn't do us any good.
Don't have any teeth. Yeah. I think you have to be really, really careful here. We want to create a balance, so there isn't crimes motivated by hate, but yet we're not going to have a gotcha type of situation.
I would add this, that most criminal penalties are never fully imposed by the court. If you get picked up for shoplifting, I think it's a Class B misdemeanor, and you can spend, I think, 6 months in jail. Never get 6 months in jail, it's always less than that. My experience, again, has been when the court sentences someone, they can take into a lot of factors. And that could be one very easily the court can take into consideration and impose the full penalty provided by law. Without us telling them they have to do that, they can do that and consider that in the sentencing process. So what we do is when we pass it, we end up with a fiscal note with it, because more people go to prison in theory. And just, I don't know if it really accomplishes the good you want, because I think they can present that evidence now to the judge.
Any other questions?
Do you expect the hate crimes will be brought to the caucus, or has it been brought to the caucus? It hasn't been.
No, and I haven't had requests from caucus members to have that discussion. After committee meeting, we may, there may be a request. I don't, it'll kind of probably depend on what happens in committee.
Yeah.
I could see it, yeah. Well, yeah. Right. Okay, any other questions?
The governor said today he's going to be initiating a sort of system-wide review of the pardons and parole system in light of the parolees who have gone missing, I guess. From a legislative standpoint, is there a role for you, for this body to play in sort of reforming that system? And I mean, is there more money that's needed? Is there, or what type of review are you engaged in?
We had an audit, and the results of that audit were just here a couple weeks ago, and we have some grave concerns about what's going on there, best practices, process, and it's not a good audit for that system, and we'll be working on different policy issues with the lawmakers, and that's what we do. We don't execute the law, but we address and make the law. And I suspect that there'll be some bills that's coming, not this session, but next session, to address it once we've had a chance to digest the audit and what are the solutions. And part of that could be funding. And the paper system that they have there, going to more of a system that is modern, but procedural. There was some procedural problems and best practices issues, and I think there are actually more important issues to get to the bottom of. Get to the bottom of those issues are more important. Anyway, so that will be, I believe, a pretty one of the top discussion items for the interim to come back with legislation next year, if needed. But it appears that that's the case at this point. Good question.
Thank you.
We have Senator Backus here now, representing our Democratic Party. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Don't ask me any hard questions.
Anything you want to address?
I don't think so. I think Democrats and Republicans in the Senate are having fun, working together, rolling up our sleeves, battling, and just doing our job. So.
Thank you. That's well said. Any questions from our internet viewers?
Yes.
Excellent.
We have a text from Jason Williams. He wants Senator Okerlund to speak to his opinion about charter school funding and SB 38. Said that you had some concerns.
My concerns are, I think, were expressed very well on the floor by most of the senators that spoke to the bill. Equity in funding for all students, I think, is our goal. And how we come up with the numbers that determines equity has been where the question is. In my part of the state, where I have 12 districts, I think I only have about 2 charter schools. So every dollar that leaves the public school system and goes to charter schools is a dollar that's probably coming out of the WPU, or the system at least, for public schools. And I just want to make sure that we have some districts in my Senate district who, because of the tax structure and because of the size of those districts, they end up below what the sponsor of the bill is calling an effort level. And so they don't qualify for the funds that SB 38 covered. I think if we're going to talk about equity, we need to be able to talk about equity for every student, whether they be in Paiute County or one of the big districts that may have lots of opportunities. I love charter schools. I love options. I love lots of options for our students to be able to be involved. But I think we need to take a very close look at how we make sure that it is an equitable opportunity for each of those students. And Senate Bill 97 last year really addressed that. And I'm afraid that Senate Bill 38 kind of undoes part of what SB 97 did. That's my concern. I believe that we need to make sure that it's a good, fair system, and I'm going to continue to work to make sure that we try to have that happen statewide.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for being one of the faithful ones.
It looks like the last of the Oregon standoff members surrendered just now. Now that that's over, and you guys are considering the possibility of funding a lawsuit over similar control of land issues, I mean, has what happened up there given you any pause about committing the state to filing that kind of action or funding that kind of lawsuit?
It hasn't for me, because we started this discussion long before the issue in Oregon, long before the issue in Nevada, issue in southern Utah. So I think those are just incidents that hopefully we won't see more of, but there's some pressure as the feds tighten down control and access to federal lands. I suspect you might even get more of these complaints. It's more than a complaint, obviously, but I think that's just a natural result of this tightening down, and so and we've seen it just on a statewide policy, and independent of all that is our pursuit of getting the question answered: are we not a state? We weren't treated like Kansas and Illinois and a number of other states. That the federal land was all, became part of the state and private in that situation. And we'd obviously like to keep it as public lands, but it ought to have more state control, and that's our pursuit.
Just to be clear, you weren't saying that armed standoffs are a natural, how did you say it?
Well, I think those kind of things are a result of this tightening of and restricting of federal lands. Had that not happened, if this hadn't been happening over the last several years, I don't think we see a lot of what's going on. I don't condone it. I don't think that's the right approach. None of us here would say that that's what needs to happen. I'm just saying that I think it's a result of the new federal policies over the last several years, and I hope we don't have any more. But anyway, it's this control issue from people outside of Utah is concerning to all of us.
I think we all love our public lands, and we might as well find out where we stand on this issue. Where the issue's been discussed and battled and fought over for decades, and it would be nice to get to the point where we really know where we stand. If it takes going to the Supreme Court to find that out, maybe that brings clarity to the entire debate, and we deal with it from there. But we all love our public lands. We certainly don't want to limit access. Any action that we take, I think, would want to make sure that we continue to have the public be able to use those lands, but also that we have a part in at least the say of management, because the management on those public lands for the past couple of decades has continually gone downhill. We're seeing more catastrophic fires, which leads to our watersheds being decimated and polluted with everything that comes from those fires. Our air is filled with smoke all summer long from these fires. Our grazers are being told that they have to cut back on numbers because of drought conditions, but on a good year, when there really aren't drought conditions, their numbers are still low. We might as well find out where we stand on all these issues and see what kind of authority as a state that we have. See what the state's rights we really have on these issues.
Any other questions?
You're just gonna.
Any question for me?
All right. Okay. I thought maybe you'd want to address that.
Look, I am very sympathetic toward the federal government in Utah, the federal government kind of anywhere, and actually the state government too. You know, let's face it, as you live your life, you just want more or less invisible, cool things to be done, and they're not bothering your life. And certainly the intrusion of the federal government in Utah has some very, very sad moments. But what I'd like to see is a giant fire hose toward everybody to cool down the rhetoric, to just sit down, roll up their sleeves, and come up with a plan that common sense people could and would appreciate. Perhaps Senator Okerlund is right. And I was originally completely in favor of this big enchilada lawsuit with the feds, especially on original jurisdiction, which would skip all the expensive steps between here and the Supreme Court. My problem has come in is a process problem. And I want to make sure that we know exactly what we're getting into, what it's going to cost, and what both sides of the argument are. I think nobody wants a lawsuit that isn't going to get us where we want to go. And so my criticism has been process-oriented, and I felt that some of us don't have all of the information we need in order to make the kind of decision we need to make as to where to go ahead. But I agree. We've been negotiating for 30 or 40 years around a federal table, and both sides think they're the top dog. And until we get that giant ruling from those 12 wise people in Washington that says, Utah, you're right, you're the top dog, or feds, you're right, we're probably going to have another generation. So if that's what it takes, getting there, let's have that come down, and that would allow us to be around the table where we could all just know who's in control, so we could have better negotiations, we could get more money for the state in our payments in lieu of taxes and health and a lot of other things. So if that's the right thing to do, the big lawsuit, let's bring it soon, let's get it there. But otherwise, that's all I have to say.
The 9 big dogs.
Yeah,
Tonight.
you said 12.
12, that's kind of a religious.
Oh.
What religion?
Thank you for correcting
Split there, you know,
that.
right?
I'm losing track of my numbers. The 9 big dogs.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you for watching us today, and please gear up, think about some questions, ask us tomorrow. We appreciate you watching. Thank you for being here.